A good book stays with you. A good book becomes your counsel in a way. When you get in a situation, something from that book is there with you, talks to you, lets you know that yes, but you can survive this, or you're not alone in this.
You are now part of a social experiment.
See now where my limit is. Only got no.
Welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us today on the journey towards self-mastery. Our next guest is a Queens, New York native. She's been writing since kindergarten and sold her first story at 14 years old. She's now an educator and a New York Times best-selling author of novels for young adults and middle grade readers. Her novels have been recipients of numerous awards, including the Coretta Scott King Award, National Book Award finalist, Newbery Honor Book, and more. Her books can be found in homes and classrooms all over the country. She has been featured in the PBS documentary, Vanguards of the Revolution, about the Black Panthers. Let's welcome today legendary writer Rita Williams Garcia to the program.
G, thank you so much for extending the invitation.
Indeed. Thank you. I appreciate it. I know you are busy. And I think we talked before, coming on today that I don't have that much luck with best-selling authors that I actually come on the program. So
yeah,
I appreciate
we're
you
all
coming
just
on.
under deadlines and trying to get our books done. And so I understand a lot of my colleagues have to really pick and choose what they do and all that good stuff. But I am here.
Indeed. You respond, you appear. And shout out to my colleague, Danielle, that put me on to One Crazy Summer.
That's
She's
right.
like, you got to read this with your daughter and this and that. I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to check it out and read it with my daughter. And then I'm like, chilling, Black History Month, chilling, kicking it, watching Vanguards of the Revolution. And guess who I see popping? Rita Williams Garcia. And I'm like, this is the universe telling me that I have to hit her up. And I sent you a message and the rest is history, Yeah, absolutely. So, we were talking about before you came on the program, I almost gave up on young adult literature from Black authors. There was a series of books that were very, very popular that I was reading because my students were reading them. And, I read them over and over again just to make sure, and I didn't like some of the things that they were talking about. Some of it was anti-Blackness in regards to how they were talking and depicting Black people. One of the books had Black Panthers in it, and Black Panthers were these ignorant, F the system and the man kind of thing. I thought it was a really bad misrepresentation. And I think some of the books were hypersexualized for young adults. The language was very intense. And I always think about, representation. It's one of the reasons that MasterMine exists. And I feel like, everything I try to look at, what is the representation? Are there people in these books and in these movies, whatever, that are redeemable, that we look up to, or that have great qualities? And these books, I really couldn't find anyone or anything. And it was really difficult to read through. And it was interesting that, they were winning awards and being presented to a lot of students in schools. So I kind of gave up for a minute, but reading your work put me back on. All right. Brought me back. And it made me think about there's this difficulty, I guess, being a young adult author and being Black. And it's like, are you writing just to write? This is your profession and what you're doing? Or is there a social responsibility there that's involved in the writing? So, from a young adult author yourself, do you think that Black authors should have this social responsibility and consciousness when they are writing about stories about Black people? Or is it, do they have to make a living and do what they got to do?
So
what's your take?
You happen to be talking to Rita at 66. You're not talking to Rita at, say, 31 or 22 with a bullet my manuscript, not a gun. So you're talking to someone who has lived through some things. So this conversation with me now, I will say to you that the most important thing that we have to give as writers is humanity and truth. And so I
Mm.
think all depictions, especially depictions of Black people, have Genesis in their humanity. They have it has
Mm.
to have the ring of truth. It has to have that sense that we know this person, even if we only see them out the corner of our eye. We have to feel the truth in their story, and I'm talking mainly about main characters, and those characters that greatly affect them. When I was first starting out, it was important for me to write my characters, their speech, and their point of view as I saw it represented to me. So the
Mm.
things that my characters would say, for example, using the N word, the things that my characters would say, the things that they would do because they're going through struggle and they don't have the answers, those things would not be perceived as being positive, um, positive content for young people. So that is
Mm.
that is what my first reviews were things like, well, she's talented, but there are better books. One actually said there are better books for young people. Another said, oh, I don't know if this is stereotype or not. I'm just not sure, which is really good because you're questioning what you think you know about Black culture. So good, question that. I have kind of modified certain things as I went along. I said I would never write about the past. I would stay in contemporary times because young people just at that time, we're talking about the 80s, young people just didn't have enough stories that reflected what was going on here and now. We're in the burgeoning hip hop era, and we're still talking about characters in slavery and characters in civil rights. And so I always felt like, oh, I think we better speed it up and just talk about what's going on now. Well, fast forward into my life, um, being able to share what I saw, and what our history is became very important to me because I just felt like, oh my goodness, all of this history, all of this struggle, all of these triumphs, all of these heroes are going to be buried. No one's going to know their names. No one's going to know the genesis
Mm.
of, why is there breakfast and lunch in school systems? Why are there all of these free clinics
Mm.
in neighborhoods, in brown and Black neighborhoods? Why is there all of this push, to register to for voting, or just to take control of your neighborhood and not just take what people give you, but to question authority? You know, who's going to do that if I don't do it? If I don't put it down and pay on paper, and don't do it in a way that it feels like I am telling our story, and not that I am writing something that, oh, I know the schools will buy it. Yes, I need a paycheck. Trust me, just before one crazy summer hit, I was facing eviction. So, I understand about
Mm.
taking jobs, taking writing assignments because we got to pay the bills, because we need health insurance, because we got to pay the rent, and so forth. But when you sit down to do something for our young people, for children of a certain age, and then for them as they're growing older, and that they're able to kind of apply things to their situation or and really ask really hard questions, that we do bear a certain amount of responsibility to bring forth what is true about us. One of my friends and colleagues, Jackie Woodson, took umbrage to, oh goodness, I done forgot the name of the book. But to a certain book because of its depiction of Black people, particularly in the South, and how false it was. And see, that has always been my thing too. I this is how I would read stories about us when I was first trying to break in. It would be just the face, like, don't let me get in there. Don't let me tell it, because I'm not gonna tell it like that. Like, you know, that's just there to slap an award on it. You're like, oh, so the responsibility is there. And I think people are doing it in their own way. And one of the things I had to learn as I was, as I am acquiring age, is that we are truly a diverse people, and that we are all coming from very different situations. We know we have some commonalities that we don't have to take a vote. We got it. We know it. We feel it. We can't help but feel it. But I have to respect the fact that we're not all coming from the same backgrounds and experiences. So
well said. Agreed. So I kind of like think about with your work and how you view things. What would you identify as like a good book and a bad book? Like what makes a good book in your view? Talking to an award-winning writer here.
A good book stays with you. A good book becomes your counsel in a way. When you get in a situation, something from that book is there with you, talks to you, lets you know that, yes, but you can survive this, or you're not alone in this. And I think that's what a lot of books, especially maybe the LGBTQ books, are saying, like, you're not alone in this. A bad book. Let me think. Well, okay. I read a lot of bad books. I'll start there. But a lot of books that I will say don't hold the same weight are books that you're reading to be reading, which is a good exercise of your muscle. But ask me something about that book a week later, 2 weeks later, a year later. Do I even know the title? It's good for here and now, and it's good for, and it satisfies something that needs to hear that particular story, or have that kind of thrill, or like whatever that is supplying to you. But you don't take it with you. It's like the boyfriend that that you're not going to invite him home to meet anybody. He good for right now. It's all fun and games and good. But where you think you're going? I didn't invite you for Thanksgiving.
Got it. Like with that analogy, when you said that, I just thought about like required reading in school versus like reading on your own. And I think that you, along with many of your colleagues, has changed school bookshelves, school libraries, and those required reading, those summer reading book lists. Like, you've changed a lot of that. But before you guys came into the picture, you in I guess your early childhood educational phase, what do you remember reading in the classroom versus what you were able to read outside of it?
In the classroom, it was things like Little Women, Johnny Tremaine, Where the Red Fern Dies or Grows or Lives, or Old Yeller. Those were like, so those were the required reading. That was the required reading kind of stuff. And, for the like the adventure of it, it was all well and good, but these are not books that I'm going to take with me anywhere. I know Little
Mm,
Women is a classic and all of that, but I guess it's because I come out of slave ancestry that during that period, it's just hard for me to have sympathy. There's a whole
mm.
layer that it was just hard for me to care. I don't care.
Were you reading
I
Huckleberry
refused.
Finn in those books?
I refused.
Really?
Once I saw one of the
Mm.
names, uh, N. Jim, that was the end of it. I ain't reading it.
Mm-hmm,
I'm not.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I am not. Find another book for me. I'll read other white people. I will not read something that where the character's name is N. Jim. No, no. I don't hate myself. I do not.
It's a class. People,
I do not hate myself. I do not hate
it's so funny.
my slave ancestors. No.
Man, that is fascinating because I've heard, white folks of your generation just say, oh my God, that's a classic book.
Glad
I
they
love
love.
that book. Huckleberry
Um,
Finn. That
glad
changed
they
my
loved
life.
it. That's why I had to change the narrative. I had to write what I write. But okay. But I'm going to
Mm,
say this. By the same token, just like I said, oh, I'm only going to write about here and now, and then I ended up writing about civil rights era, well, post civil rights era. I said after I got to a certain point, I said I will never use that word again. That word has been used to strip the humanity off of my people, and as a kind of a prelude to violence and murder. You know, to devalue you so that
mm,
your life does not matter. So I will never use that word. Well,
mm.
guess who went and wrote about slavery? Lord have mercy. And I did not do it in a way that I would be telling the stories of my ancestors. Instead, I thought, who are these people that they feel privileged to exploit me? Who are they? Like,
Mm.
so I wrote more about that slave owning family because I wanted people to see them as human beings and see what these human beings were capable of, as opposed to
That
writing
is,
about to writing them as monstrous characters. Because had I done that, someone who a white person who comes out of that ancestry would say, "Oh no, my people weren't like that. They were good to their enslaved people."
mm, that is very, very, very important because I think in today's age, it's like, you're either a KKK white guy or you're just everyday white guy that's, honest, making a living, doesn't see color and all that. So I think that those kind of, taking those kind of looks at white
Yeah,
society is very
we have
important.
a very the American
So,
history is very interesting history, and that's why I'm so against all of this retelling it in all this okay BS way. Okay, so I had the privilege of having a grandmother who was raised by her enslaved great grandma, formerly enslaved great grandmother. Okay. And so before the KKK would ride, because she had her older brothers, they were men. And so that meant that they could be in danger. The white sheriff would come by and say to Miss Mahalia, um, you know, you keep them boys in tonight, we gonna be riding. Not they gonna be we gonna be riding. You keep them boys
mm,
in tonight. If they got a job, then they gonna have to miss their work. You keep them in. So that
wow.
was kind of what you know, but it made me say it is we are married to each other in this strange history, in this racist history. Our histories are intertwined in very complex ways. And so I hear your daughter is reading One Crazy Summer and she's on to the second book. Well, when she gets to the third book, the girls will be traveling down south to stay with family. You're going to see that kind of complexity where, yeah, it's the racist sheriff who is also their kin, the racist KKK sheriff who's also their
Mm,
kin. We have a very complex history, and that's why we can't whitewash it with, oh, they learned trades and they were workers who learned. We cannot do that because we're not serving anyone.
mhm, mhm,
You know, it should not be
mm,
afraid to
mm.
see what the past was and to understand why we are the way we are.
Indeed, and it's certainly
Right,
not us
right.
that wants to do that, but that is very, very true, and I'm glad you're doing that work because telling the truth about history is super important. I kind of want to take
Let's
some
let's
back steps
let's step
and
back.
get into your yeah, I want to get into your journey as a writer because I think your journey is super important. And sometimes we look at the greatest, like these professional athletes, and
Oh,
we don't know
sure.
like what it took to get there. Like you didn't just start winning awards, at 12 years old. It there was a process. There was a process. So let's start this process out with your childhood. I know a lot of some of your characters are people that you've seen growing up in your childhood and people that you've experienced and things like that. So what was your childhood like, and what were some of the things that would later go on to
Well,
inspire
one of the
some of your
good things
writing?
about my childhood was that it was up and down. It was varied. We started very humble, living in the projects in Far Rockaway. And then when we moved west, my father went to officers training candidate school, and he became a lieutenant. And then we were able to, like, we moved in. Well, we had to move from house to house to house because that's just Army life. But we finally had like this stability, and education was so important. Education and athleticism, sports, and everything. All of that was important, and so we had this kind of middle classness, which isn't quite
Mm,
middle class the way that we might traditionally think of it, but Black middle classness is very different. Like our middle classness might come from the fact that we are church people, and so so we strive a certain way. It might come from the fact that we are education people, so we are striving a certain way. So the same thing with military families. So our middle classness is not necessarily about the money, the wealth. But it's about what we strive and what we instill in our generations, in our kids. When we're giving them certain values, we are creating that middle classness. Okay, we had that sense of that we could do anything, that we had responsibility, that we worked hard, but we also were a fun-loving family. A lot of laughter and a lot of games, and those kinds of things. I have an older sister and brother. We're all like a year. We're stair steps a year apart, and so that fostered closeness. We took on leadership roles. My sister, brother, and I. We were like Cape Crusaders in the neighborhood. We would walk around, and if anybody was bothering any kids, we would like step up to it. Like, what was wrong with us? Anyway, watch too much Batman and Green Hornet and Cape. Anyway, but we were those kids, and so when my father came back from Vietnam, and things changed, and we had to leave the military. We lost our home. We lost what was normal child life. We didn't know anything about no cursing or Like we were kids. We were like that Black Brady Bunch kids. Like whatever you saw on TV, that's kind of the life that we led. And then suddenly that was over, and we were living in our grandmother's house, and we could not go outside and play, and those things. So I started writing stories. My brother started writing with me. He was more of a math guy. My sister was an artist. She could paint, draw. Anything she did with her hands were just beautiful. And we were encouraged that way. So it really helped to have parents that just said, all right, y'all, you can do a little better, they didn't just applaud everything, so it was like, you can do a little, you're a Williams, you can do, you better do it like that. You better, anyway. um, but things got very hard through my teen years. We just couldn't afford much, couldn't really afford clothes. And let me tell you that clothing is your world when you're like in junior high and high school. You want to look good. You want to wear what everybody else is wearing. You don't want to wear some dress your mother hemmed up from somewhere. Uh, so it was a little hard, but I was I always had my eye on the prize of getting a scholarship, which I did get. I got a full ride to Hofstra University, and it was only just a skip and a jump from Queens to Hempstead, Nassau County. But I was able to live in a dorm and to study whatever I wanted to study, and to kind of grow socially, because I was such an odd athletic nerd, just as odd as you want to be, chess playing, like just odd. Um, and so I had to learn how to be amongst other humans, and I was very lucky because I had a very nurturing surroundings. The Black Student Union was very close knit, and so people were like, "Uh oh, somebody go and snatch that child and keep her under your wing because she gonna be lost." She's So that was just very important, and so I can see why many of us want to go to HCBUs, you know, and why community is so important, because to have someone check on you, to have someone kind of take you aside and say, okay, whatever they need to tell you, and it helps a lot when it is within the community, because you feel like okay, you're
Mm-hmm.
not completely alone. You kind of have family there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now you grew up during a time frame where
Yes.
there was a lot of change,
Oh yeah.
a lot of assassinations happening. And you kept a journal growing up. Do you remember like some of the
Are you
things that
kidding
you
me?
put inside
I
your
still
journal,
got some of
like
those
that you
diaries
experienced?
running around here. Do I have one with? Oh, wait a minute. Yes, I do. This is the OG diary.
Wow.
So this is
What age level was that?
1967
Like when
and
did you write that?
68. Okay, so oh my goodness gracious. I found out that Janet and Eric are going together. I've got to fight it. Okay. All right. So there's all of that kind of stuff, but there's also things like where are we? One entry says I saw Robert Kennedy in person at the airport, and the other, on the other side, it says
Mm.
Martin L. King died.
Hmm.
You
Wow.
know.
That's
So
fascinating. Do you remember what you saw happening and what your responses were at that
oh
time?
yeah, oh yeah. Wait, I'm going to read this. We had an assembly honoring MLK, and white children were laughing, and that made Miss Dixon cry. Miss Dixon was one of three black teachers. Um, yeah. And then I have somewhere in here for the manhunt for James Earl Ray, and for Sirhan Sirhan. I make notation of that. And so there's like there's no insights in these things. It's just kind of noting these things that happen and all of that. But I was very aware of a lot of things happening in the world, in the news. Um, I was glued to the news because of Vietnam, and my father was in Vietnam. And so that would mean I would also catch the other things that were going on, like presidential races and things going on with celebrities. So I knew the names of the celebrities of the day and what was happening with them, so I kind of had a real chronological sense of things and of people and movies and songs, especially songs. So I really absorbed my times.
Mm. Man, so at which point during this childhood did you know and understand that your destiny was going to be that of a writer?
Well, I always knew it. I just always I could I considered myself to be a writer from like early on, just because that was what I did. I would stop a kickball game, like a really good kickball game, in the middle because I had an idea and I wanted to be alone so I could sit down and think about it. Now, mind you, I have an older brother and sister. I have a boy that I have some crush on who's playing who's out there playing, and and all the neighborhood kids and everything. And then all of a sudden I go, I quit. I have to sit down and think. Like, what is wrong with me? Anyway, it really wasn't until I was 12 that I thought, okay, I think I need to start making money. I'm a really good writer. I think I need to make money. And so I went to the library, which was around the corner from my grandmother's house, which was where we were living in St. Albans. And I would check out the writer's handbook, the writer's market, literary marketplace, those books, and sit down and read and take notes about like how to prepare a manuscript, where I could send my stories to, how much did they pay, you're like all of that. So that's when I started sending out my stories. I always thought I was a writer. It never occurred to me when I grow up, I'm going to be a writer. I always thought, okay, well, I write all the time anyway, so I am a writer. I would write 500 words every night, um, and because I learned that you got paid by the word, so yeah, like 5 cents, 10 cents a word. What? All those dollars? Every sentence was like $1 to me. What? So I was writing every night, just like cackling because I was going to be rich. And um, yeah, the rejection letters were coming fast and furious. But I didn't care. I just felt like, yes, well, writers go through these things. And it took me a while to think maybe I should write about something that I know about. Um, and I had this friend in the fourth grade named Corazon Velasquez. She came over from the Philippines, and the teacher sat her next to me so she could learn English. And she would tell me about life in the Philippines. And so I wrote this story about a little boy who wanted to talk to birds. And so his older brother makes a flute out of bamboo for him so he could talk to birds. Now, what do I know about the Philippines? Only what Corazon has told me. So the names are all wrong. They're all like these made up names that I think are Filipino names. They are not. Um, you know, and but this was a story that I sold, and the relationship between the little brother and the older sibling is more like my relationship with my brother and sister. So in a way, I was kind of writing about what I knew. Um, but it wouldn't be until like 50 years later when I did the DNA, like, you do that DNA
Oh
test
yeah,
to find out where
ancestry.
your
Yep.
people in Africa are,
Hmm.
and I see this little sliver. I'm like, what's that about? I expected to see some slave, some Anglo somebody there. I was like, yeah, you know. Um, but I saw this little sliver. It's like, and it was 2% Filipino, and it just made me laugh. I was like, okay, like, all right,
That is fascinating.
yeah.
All right, so
But I'm definitely Nigerian,
mhm.
Cameroon, like that, yeah.
Mm,
So,
that is interesting. All right, so along with the journey comes your great patience for publication. So your first book took 8 years.
oh
Um,
yeah.
why why did it take so long, and why did you persist? Why did you continue? Because I would imagine that there might be people that might say, "Well, let me do something else. This is not working." Why did it take so long, and why'd you persist?
Well, it's a racist world out there. That's why it took so long. No, well, um, it took well, okay. See, 22. Rita at 22. I told you a little bit about 66, but Rita at 22 would have said, it's a racist world out there. I'm still pushing. I'm still fighting. And there's a lot of truth in that. Um, I don't think children's literature was ready for the story that I wanted to tell. Um, like like they had like teen novels like um, what is it, Rumblefish, and I know there's another story that's even bigger than that one by the same author, and Go Ask Alice, and like those kinds of problem novels, and so they were kind of serious in their way, very serious in their way. But I was doing something different. I wasn't doing. I was trying to do something more real. It was back in the days when they would put a label on your book, or in the review that would say, "This story is realistic." Kind of, beware. So, I'm like, well, if it ain't gonna be real, what's the point? Um, but so yeah, I got an agent right away, a really good agent off of Fifth Avenue, um, but I wasn't quite ready to do the things that he wanted me to do to sell the book. I did some of them. I wouldn't do them all. Some of the biggest issues were trying to make my book cross over a lot more, because there was a fear that the white readers would not know a lot of the references. And my opinion was always, it's a book. Read it and find out. Read it and be curious, and then find out. Read it and know that you don't know everything that you think you know. So, whereas someone else from within the culture will read it, and maybe they'll feel more of a connection because something is included in a book that they have not seen in the other required reading, or the other books that they that are out there. So, so it took a long time. And again, I was trying to write for the here and now, and it was like the birth of hip hop was really happening. And so I was not trying to write. I was just trying to capture a lot of the flavor of what I thought was going on. And then I finally, it took years. I finally got an answer from an editor who really wanted to see the book, and so she met with me, and I was had my guard up because, to me, um, publishers, they they just want to steal your story to me. I was distrustful. And here she was, this little white girl, blonde, blue eyes, like, yeah, she one of them too. and so and so she but so she talked to me a little bit about some of the editing that would have to happen. And it was a good thing that I had been rejected all those years, because now I was ready to, like, all right, Rita, look, you're either going to be an office worker, which was what I was, or you're going to be an author. Which one you going to be? I think you're going to have to learn to make some compromises. So through the editing period, that was where I had to grow up and learn that, yeah, Rita, you are talented, that's for sure. But maybe, yeah, you have to tighten up the grammar a lot more. You have some habits that you need to be aware of. And probably be helpful if you wrote in a consistent tense, like. So all of these, when I finally got the manuscript with all of the editing marks over it, and was like, it was humbling, but it was the best thing to happen to me. The best thing, because I had to, yes, my self-belief got me there, but I had to also be willing to learn and to work hard, so.
Oh, so I was saying that you have a white woman that is an editor. So what do you say to those that would ask the question, well, Rita, how are you keeping this authentically Black if you are getting revisions and editing from, white women?
Okay, so one of the first things to say is that back in the years of the 1980s and the 90s, you could really count Black editors on your hand. So that is something that had to kind of change and open up for all of us, Um, and but one of the other things is that over a period of time, I grew to truly trust Rosemary. That is her name. I grew to really trust her and to learn so much from her, and to not deprive myself of learning, of not becoming a better writer. Um, if there was someone out there who would have published my book, I trust me, I would have reached out to them. And again, one of the other issues was that I was not writing. I didn't seek to write role model characters, and so I would have conflict with some Black editors. I would have conflict because I am not writing the book about the person who pretty much has it together and is fighting the system, using their strength and their intelligence and resilience to fight the system. To me, anybody can write that. That story doesn't, or I should say, that story doesn't need me to tell that story. One of my favorite characters is a third character from my third book, Like Sisters on the Homefront. And it's a story about a 14-year-old teen mother who, when the story opens up, she's running back and forth to the bathroom throwing up because she is pregnant again. She is semi-literate, and she's way too fast, for her age, and for what that would mean for any child that she would have. And it was just important for me to save this girl. Not in a very obvious way, I guess, but in a way that that she could um, respect, and it I also got to bring generations together, because eventually what happens is her mother's like, all right, this enough of this, you are going down south to stay with family. And in staying with family, she to keep busy, she will be taking care of her great grandmother, and her great grandmother has a lot to give her, and she feels the weight of all that her great grandmother gives her. And so there is a certain way that I could have told that story so that you could be very sympathetic to this character. But I think that most of us, when we are going through struggle, we're not at our best. We are not anywhere near where we need to be. We have a long way to go. And so I prefer to start her in that place where, you just want to shake her, like, and if the reader feels that way too, then that's a good thing. And you watch her grow, and become the person she's supposed to be, or have the potential. We can see the potential for that.
Great points. Great points. So we got the publication down. Now, making money is a whole nother story. So it took you up until One Crazy Summer to really start making money from your books. Can you talk about exactly how authors actually make money from their books? And what about One Crazy Summer allowed opportunities for you to flourish?
Okay, so first of all, let me just say it. Money. It's just like, we need it. In the beginning, I was told things like, oh, don't sell out to the dollar, and and stuff like that. Don't write just for the money. Trust me, we all need money. We gotta live. We gotta be able to live. Um, and so I am your classic. Don't don't be this. Don't do what I did. I did have an agent, and then when I felt like, nah, I don't want to be bothered with that, I'm gonna do it the way I'm gonna do it. Um, what I should have done was found a new agent. Um, and I think young writers coming up now are smart enough to get an agent. That agent does not make money until you make money. So they are out there like hoofing it, getting your stories seen by editors who they feel that that this can be a good relationship, a good working relationship. So that's the one thing is getting have building a team, having a good team around you, starting with an agent, and doing your social media. Okay, this is a don't be me. I post, maybe, I don't know, I post a couple times a month, maybe something like that. But I don't have to I don't think I have to tell young people about social media. They own it, they live it, they good, you know. I think one of the good things is that I think that writers today are in a better place to bargain, to negotiate rather, and to get what they are owed. It took me a long time because I kept wanting to write these books that ain't nobody want to buy. Um, I wasn't trying to make money. I was just I have this story about a girl who, a little girl, and yes, it's about female genital mutilation. And I want to tell this story. So that would be a big NO for most schools, right? Like, is she crazy? No. Um, I I have a love story to me that I think is a true love story. But it's about a boy who falls in love with a girl, who who was sexually abused, sexually traumatized. You know, and it's not an easy story. And some people think that he's a stalker. Well, he just keeps looking out for her. But, some people think he's a stalker. Some people say, oh, well, why doesn't he just be sensitive toward her and, and understand that she's gone through something uh, and therefore back off and just be a friend, and, and, um, and whereas I'm trying to tell a story about two people who need healing and they come together, you know. But you can't walk around explaining your story. Your story has to stand on its own. So yeah, that yet another story that was doomed to kind of like, I won't say fail, but not exactly make it on the New York Times bestseller list. So I tend to I write what I want because I don't know how else to do it. I'm not very good. I learned recently what I always knew. I'm not very good with for hire. I'm just not good that way. So I write what I want. Therefore, I have to always have like a job, like something. Um, gotta pay the bills. But right now, the only thing I am doing is writing, because of One Crazy Summer, and then the books that came afterwards, that allowed me to sustain myself. I had said before that I was on my way to eviction. It was the week before it was the Wednesday, I believe, the Wednesday before the midwinter, which is when the like all the awards are voted on and announced, like the Newbery and the Caldecotts and Coretta Scott Kings and Pura Belpre, like before those awards. It was the Wednesday before that. So I was down in court, kind of like, oh, look, I think I'm gonna get a good royalty check this time. Can you hold off, like kicking me out of my apartment? you know, and it just so happened that um, the an article about me and Sharon Draper, author Sharon Draper, was also in the USA Today, and USA Today happened to be on the judge's table, and I was like, 1 minute, and I turned to it, and I said, "That's me. I'm kind of up for an award. Even if I don't win, people are buying my book, so just hang on, and I'll be able to get everything right." And the judge was like, "Queen's girl does good. We're going to give her time. We're going to give her a lot of time." And so it was. I am so grateful. But one thing I didn't care about at 22 was, I don't want no award. I don't care about that. You know, I don't want no award. I just want to write my story. Um, and yet it was the award that saved me.
Yeah, because then every school wants a piece of that book, like the award winning, schools want it. There's something about, like, even I remember being a young reader as well. Whenever I saw like a stamp on a book that said New York Times bestseller or some award, it's like, this got to be a good book. I gotta see what this is about. Like, you know what I mean? It's an extra layer of interest that you get when a book is either award nominated or wins an award. So I'm sure that brought a lot of attention.
Yes, indeed it did, and it changed my life. I spend more time thinking about my work and writing. But here's the funny thing: I write a lot, but not all of it is good. So as much as I might write, I might only be able to use this much. Um, but um, but that's okay. I feel like that, that's what it is. Trying to get to a better book. We were talking earlier about good books versus bad book, and I know. I guess it's my parents telling me, "User Williams, you're supposed to blah blah blah. You're supposed to be this. You're supposed to do that." Um, I know what my work can be, and I can hand it in early and it'll be good. But I want it to be something that I always like, that I see in it what's supposed to be,
Mm.
So
You want excellence. You want excellence. Um, yeah. So one of the things that I've noticed about your work is like, if anybody reads your book, it's super duper detailed. Like, so I realized that if you are including someone who is playing an instrument, you probably researched and played that instrument yourself. If you're including somebody who's milking a cow, you probably learned how to milk a cow yourself. If you're including certain scenes and scenarios and things like that, you probably went to those scenes and visited those places. And if you're including a time frame or a time period, you probably read historical information about those, that time frame, music about the time frame, culture about the time frame. And people might ask, well, Rita, you're writing a fictional piece. Like, why go into the extremes, the above and beyonds to get the details as accurate as possible for fiction?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's above and beyond. I think, even like books that are just kind of like, oh, summer reads or whatever, the writer is fully immersed in whatever the subject matter is, and they give you that immersion. Even if it's a rom-com, if the person is a baker, you're going to feel like you are knee deep in that dough. So I like for me, I have to really feel like I'm there. And I have to feel the textures. I have to feel the, it has to feel real to me. If it's not real to me, I can't make it real to someone else. And there's a lot that I can kind of really close my eyes and imagine. But then there's just that whole like milking the cow. Well, for Gone Crazy in Alabama, I had to go and milk a cow. I had to go and see how full the sack, the milk sack gets, to understand. Oh, he can't be late for milking that cow. He's got to milk that cow, at this time. And then again at that time. I get it. It helps you feel the urgency. Like the details kind of really help. They can also become part of the plot. They can weave themselves into the plot if you really choose things wisely. It's like furnishing a house. You don't just put things there because they're there. They have to really tell the story of the people who live there, and it has to be functional and all that feng shui kind of stuff. Um, well, that's the same thing with the detail that you include. You don't just put it in because I spent all this time doing this research. I'm going to put that in. Um, you know, it has to it has to meld into the lives of the characters, and so that you start to feel all those things that the characters feel and see and do.
That makes sense. That makes sense. And that's why so many people enjoy your work, all the details. So we can't not discuss One Crazy Summer. That was my introduction to you, and now I'm like hooked and everything. So with One Crazy Summer, the interesting component of that is the one of the main characters, their mother Cecile, is she's the one, she's the parent that left and walked away. Like, so we usually do not, obviously this is a reality for a lot of children, but we usually do not see this reality in a book or in movies or in anything like that. So what made you want to go with that route, the mother leaving and not the father?
Because I felt the father's brokenheartedness first. Even surrounded by his daughters, I felt a sense of just loss. And when I thought about the mother, well, I knew she was going to be a poet, and how was she going to do that and have three children and a a mate? that she would have to do for. Um, and I thought about where she came from and how broken her life was because it was broken into. And I thought, well, how can she truly give to these children? I knew that Delphine would be the responsible one. And I knew that that would be not because it's a tradition that the oldest African American child is the responsible one, which is, you know, that's just a basic truth. But I needed to understand, like, why she is the way she is, and what has been put upon her, and why she feels so it, that so wedded to it, um, um, that so much so that she almost loses a part of her own girlhood. Well, she is losing part of her own girlhood because she's not experiencing joy and laughter in the same way that the other two younger sisters do, with all even with all their fighting and squabbles. They're kids, whereas she doesn't have the luxury of being a kid, even though you can see that she's still a child. She doesn't know it all, but she's doing the best with what she's got, and she is standing up straight, and except when she's like toe to toe with her mother, and then she becomes a little girl trying to stand up to her mother, but yet she can't. Um, I wanted the mother to be separated from, for her to pick up and leave, because I thought, this is a thing of desperation. It's not just that she wants to be gone. It's that maybe if she stayed, she knew she would be destructive toward her children because she wasn't a whole person within herself. And a lot of us, we go through postpartum depression, or we have some awful thing that interrupts our childhood, and so we don't get to be that fully formed person. um, and yet it doesn't stop us from having children. And when you're not whole and able to nurture, you know it has to affect the children and their own development. And so for me to create this family where the daughter is like a de facto mother, I had to get rid of the mother without killing her.
Mhm. That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, another key component in One Crazy Summer, obviously, is the Black Panthers. So Cecile is connected with the Black Panthers, and um, there's a thing in there that I really really didn't think about before in depth, and it's this whole dynamic with the Black Panthers, because we know from history, the Black Panthers are for the community. They're trying to build community and revolutionize everything and protect Black people and do all that. But at the same time, you have this dilemma of Black Panthers that were running from police, and when the FBI caught up to them and it was dangerous, they were going to live in apartments together and pretty much leaving their families. And it's this whole dilemma that I'm seeing, within the book, and as well as like within the Black Panthers, that I'm kind of thinking about. And you grew up during the time frame of Black Panthers. You went to a few of their breakfast programs and things of that sort. So what was your take on this whole dilemma that Black Panthers face, in your book and just in general when it comes to abandoning their families and their children and things like that in order to do what they had to do for the revolution?
Exactly. You said it at the end, for the revolution, for the cause. Um, Everybody in the community was the family. You couldn't like, you had your own family, but the idea was that everybody was the family. And so if you had to pick up and go there, your family was being taken care of over there. Your children might be over here, whereas you and the mother might be on the run or whatever they're over there. So the idea was that the community was the family. The Black Panther community was the family, and not the traditional American model: mother, father, sister, brother. You know, even though those those components were there, but it had to take on a larger role. There was one of the things that I wanted to do with the Black Panthers, keeping in mind that I'm writing for fourth graders, at the very least fourth graders, I thought, was to suggest that yes, these are all of these things that they are instilling in the community, trying to protect the community and build up the community and so forth. But there's problems, there's issues, there's division, there's infiltration. You know, there's some things that we might not agree with. So that becomes Delphine's job, to kind of look around and say, on one hand, wow, they're doing this. And then on the other hand, but I don't like seeing those guns. So it's her job to say that, yeah, there is this larger goal, but there's also these things go that I see that I think might not be good for me and my sisters. And so in that way, I get to prepare the young reader for when they're reading the next book up, say, um, um, whether it's Kekla Magoon or, and she also has a reference, a great nonfiction tool. Oh goodness, and the Revolution. So I'm blanking out. Anyway, but when they get to more material, that they can see that, okay, yes, it's not just all a one-sided thing. It's kind of complicated, and there's a lot of forces at work. So I try to write the book for the person in the fourth grade, and to leave some doors open for growth, because the thing, the ideas you're going to be exposed to more. And so I have to leave those possibilities for more and more complex there without confusing them. So that's why you have a crazy Kelvin.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes sense. So, one of the things about you and your work, like, you're getting kids in middle school, elementary school to read especially in a stage where a lot of kids are not reading anymore. And, I did tell one of my students I was interviewing you, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I read her book. I read that book." Like, she was really hype about me interviewing you. I'm like, "Wow, I didn't realize you knew any authors, but this is good." So she was really excited. And what do you think keeps children reading your book at this point in time? And what do you think young adult writers, which I think is very difficult, like that's a very difficult age range, what do you think they have to do in order to maintain children's attention and interest in reading and these stories?
Gee, am I the right person to ask this question? I don't know, but
well, I think you are. My
think,
daughter can, every time, we've been listening to your audiobook, the minute we get in the car, she's like, can you play the book? Can you play the book? Can you play the book? Like, so she's addicted. So,
well, if I am doing my job, I am so happy and honored that kids will want to spend time with me. It helps me to remember what I was like as a young person. I did love to read, but there were times and books that made me go, like, close off from them, like, oh, what is this? Anyway, and so I try to always be truthful. I try to remember that at heart, even kids in the worst situations are kids. And so, you know, I try not to make them into little adults. Yes, Delphine is a little adult, but she's also very much a child. I think it's just the kind of honoring childhood, and just trying to remember, Rita, your childhood is nothing like theirs. It's different. It's just different. Um, um, I think one of the things that's really great is I think graphic novels are really kind of opening up what is literature. And I am all for that. I think books that have humor in them, and I don't mean just that kind of slapstick or inappropriate humor. I mean things that kind of touch us inside and make us laugh. Um, um, Anything that has genuine emotion without like pouring it on thick. Um, that catches people in very human spaces. I think those things always make the characters real and make us want to be there with them. Um, and
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Before we wrap up, Rita, I would love to do a quick little activity called "What's Your Favorite?"
Oh
Identifying
no, no,
some of
no!
some of your favorite things. So you could keep it short and simple, or expand if you want. So I'd love to know your favorite book from a new age author and from an older author.
Oh goodness. Okay, my right now my utmost favorite. Okay, so I'm going to tell you her name. Oh, okay. So my favorite book from a new Jack author um, would be Moth Me by Amber McBride. I think she is like the next coming of Toni Morrison and beyond.
Really, gotta read.
Yeah,
Gotta read that. Okay.
yeah. And the older author, um, oh goodness. Well, I'm a big Toni Morrison fan. So, boy, between her books, I'm gonna say instead of I do keep going back to Beloved, but I think I really fell in love with Toni Morrison with Song of Solomon.
Hmm. Okay. All right. I thought you were gonna say The Bluest Eye, but okay.
Well, okay. So the funny thing about The Bluest Eye, I'm in a sorority, and oh goodness, why am I having a hard time? Because it's the end of the day. Just having this literary initiative with young people was part of our goals way back in my senior year, and so I worked with a group of high school girls, and they were reading on like the third grade level, and these are like practically grown women and can barely read, and I had the bluest eye, and I wanted to share that with them because there was so much in there I wanted to share with them. And I just knew, okay, I am losing them. It's more than they can handle. So I started writing a skit, which became my first novel. I started writing dialogue, and they would read instead we put the books aside, they would read the dialogue, and then we would talk about it. And so that was my first book, Blue Tights, and the blue is from The Bluest Eye.
Hmm. That is fascinating. Yeah. All right. So, which one of your books is your favorite book?
Oh goodness, that's hard. Um, Boy, I'm looking at them. Okay, I'm going to take One Crazy Summer out of the picture because that is the book that saved me. It is between I think it's between Gone Crazy in Alabama because I love generational connection and A Sitting in St. James, which is the story that I was talking about before, um, because I think it's important to really acknowledge behavior and see it, you know.
Got
So,
it. Got it. All right. What has been, I guess, your favorite compliment and then your favorite critique from a child that has read your book?
okay, my favorite compliment was from I went to a settlement house, to do a program, and a little girl, she's like, I think in the second grade, and she told me I was her favorite character. And that was like, that said it all for me. I'm like, it's true and it's true. So I'm like, I'm not going to like, the teacher wanted to correct her and I was like, no, let's let that one stand. So I like that. Um, um, and um, and I'm sorry, there was a two-part question.
Critique from a child, favorite
Oh,
critique.
oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, I get a lot of really good ones. But one was basically that they could have written the ending better.
Oh,
And I was like, oh, that's a thought. Let's do that. And that's what they did. They rewrote they rewrote the ending, and I thought that was wonderful. See, I like criticism from my readers because I know they're paying attention
mm-hmm.
and that they're thoughtful, and that they're holding me to the fire and that it's important.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The compliments is good, makes me feel really good. But when someone says, why did you do that? Or I don't think that should have happened. Instead, this should have happened. And it's a child reader. To me, that's the goal.
Yeah.
Because see, I've already written the book and I got paid for it. Now I'm gonna get some more money for it. Yay! But the payoff is always going to be knowing that someone thought more. They thought deeply, and they felt that it was important enough for them to speak up.
Indeed, indeed. All
That
right.
makes me feel good about the next generation. Young people.
I agree. I agree. What is your favorite place to read?
There are park benches in the city and in Brooklyn that I go to where I can just like have like a cup of coffee and some kind of pastry and 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 then if I hear birds chirping in the background, that's like music, you know. And
Gotcha. Got it. Got it.
yeah.
Favorite, I guess you would say maybe a Mount Rushmore of Black authors.
Ooh, okay, all right, all right. Okay. Okay, I have to have Zora Neale Hurston because she is all spectrums of it, of humanity. And she has that laughter. Laughter is important to me. And even through all that the people go through, there is laughter. So definitely her, definitely Toni Morrison, and Alice Walker kind of really walked me through a lot while I was apprenticing, and I put Jacqueline Woodson up there because I read her when I feel like, oh, I'm having such a hard time with something. I read her and I calm down and I feel like I see better and I feel better. Oh, Tony Cade Bambara.
Hmm.
Whoa.
I'm not familiar with her.
Oh, okay. So she wrote The Salt Eaters and Gorilla My Love. She wrote in the late 70s and early 80s. It's really The Salt Eaters that has this kind of like Afrofuturism, a precursor to that kind of, that made me say, ah, you know, you can go greater than just capturing a human being. You can do a greater human experience, you know. And I was like, okay, I'm not ready for that, but wow.
Yeah, I gotta check her out. I gotta check her out. All right. Favorite person you would like to sit down and have a conversation with that are alive?
Oh goodness, that's really bad for me because I tend to be a quiet person. Like talking is not my thing that I want to do ever. So can I pass?
You can pass. You can pass. All right. Let's finish off with the favorite life gem that anyone has ever given you. So, something that they told you about life that really stuck out to you.
The only person I think it's my mother, and not quite what she said, but it's like worst okay, worst thing happen is you could die, and I'm not afraid of dying, you know. So my mother is actually the largest figure in my artistic and personal life, because she just looms so large, and she meant that toward the end, you know, and it's funny. Queen Latifah um, today had said on social media how a friend told her it's not that serious, and that she took that to heart. You know, she learned to like how to take that into her life. It's not that serious. Um, and I think that's kind of like what my mother was saying in a way, is like, you know, um, it's all going to be all right. And there's no need to lead with fear, you know.
Yes,
Besides, we're going to die anyway.
indeed,
It'll
indeed.
be all right.
And if you can conquer that fear, I think everything else gets easier. You know, that's good. That's good. Good gems right there. All right. So, you are recognized obviously as one of the great, Mount Rushmore of young adult authors. You are, multiple time best-selling author. You've inspired children all over the country and across schools all over the country. And at this point in time, like where do you want to continue to go as a writer, and what is the legacy that you want to leave behind when you are all done?
As a writer, I want kids to know that that you don't write inside a box. You might have a genre, or a focus that you're interested in, but the world is so big, and you are in it. Partake, explore. If I could leave that to everyone, and everybody who wants to do something, um, to not wait for permission, but to know that you are put here to do things. So why not do it? Um, but as a writer, I want to learn more about playwriting, because I like the moments when maybe that the actors are on stage, and it's wordless, and there's motion, and maybe there's one word or two. And then I also love that fact that there is that great speech that you take with you, you know. So I think I want to learn a lot more about playwriting, um, and it kind of creating that in creating that on stage, and also in a book. I think it would make me a stronger writer. I always want to be a little better.
That's what self mastery is all about. Just continuing on and on, to heighten everything. So I think that you are on that journey, and you're doing amazing things as a writer, and definitely an honor to have you on the program. I think we'll definitely have you back at some point. Um, so as we wrap up, do you think you could leave us with your favorite quote and what it means to you?
Do I have one? I don't think I have one. I
You
don't.
You're the first. You're the first guest, first mastermind guest with no
I
quote.
don't I truly don't know because I I don't like anything that's static.
Hmm.
Oh, okay. I'll give you one. It's in Spanish. Si eres buena, sabe todas cosas sin libros. If you are good, you will learn all things. You will know all things without books. A strange thing for an author to say.
Very. You're gonna have me thinking about this all day now, scratching my head. Like,
But I think every artist has that thing in them. And I think every person does too, if we pay attention to it.
mm, mm. Food for thought. Food for thought. Man. Rita, I appreciate your time. I know you're super busy. Thank you for sharing some of that time with us today. Listeners, if you have not read a Rita Williams Garcia book, you are missing out on life. Please do yourself a favor. If you got kids, do them a favor, and get them a book so they can engulf into just a journey of enjoyment and interest in just really wonderful, wonderful things happening in these books. Lessons, life lessons, and yeah, pick up a book from Rita Williams Garcia. And she has many. Many of them are bestsellers. So you will not be disappointed. So pick up a book, Amazon, through her website. You can get a book and everything. And maybe you can even get a book for classrooms or whatever. Just pick up a book, support Black excellence, support Black excellence. And of course, remember, your mind is the most powerful tool in the universe. If you can think it, you can do it. If you believe in it, you can be it. And if you fight for it, you can have it. The world is yours. This has been your host, Mr. G, and I will see you next time on Mastermind.
So every day I'm going hard. I'm talking business, bank accounts, and credit cards. And somehow we defeat the odds and making sure that no one starves illegal. All you had to